Good morning, firsties, and happy Tuesday. Now, I assigned some pages in the Your Turn workbook this week where they talk about some things in a story called a problem and a solution. Now, I thought this morning that it might be nice for us to get a little bit of practice finding the problem and solution in a story before we do it during our live video together on Wednesday. Now, I am going to read the definition of a problem and solution in our Wonders book so we can know what a problem and solution in a story is. So, our Wonders book says, a problem is something that a person wants to do, change, or find out. Now, to make sure that really sinks into our brains, I'm going to read that one more time. A problem is something that a person wants to do, change, or find out. So, can you think of a story where a person wants to do something, change something, or find out something? You probably can, because just about every story has a problem in it. Let's see what a solution is. Our book says the way the person solves the problem is the solution. So the way someone solves a problem or the way someone fixes a problem is a solution. So if we have a problem in a story, the solution is how that problem is fixed. Now, yesterday we read about Mr. Takahashi and his robots that he was building. So we're going to review what the problem was in our story from yesterday. So yesterday our problem was Mr. Takahashi wanted to put a robot in a race where it had to swim. So his robot had to swim for it to be in that race. That's his problem. And his steps to his solution, so the steps he took to fix his problem were, he built a waterproof robot with arms like fins. So in order to make sure his robot could swim, he had to make sure, one, that it was waterproof, and two, he thought, I'm going to give my robot fins because that's probably going to help it swim better. And now his solution is Takahashi built his robot in a way that it could swim. So the problem was his robot needed to swim. His steps to a solution were he made his robot waterproof and he gave it fins. And his solution was Takahashi built his robot in a way that it could swim. So we're going to take a look at two stories today. We're going to identify the problem and solution in one story, and then in our second story, I'm going to challenge you all to identify the problem and solution on your own. Do you think you can do it? I think you all can. Stick with me.
Okay, firsties, this is the first story where we are going to try to identify the problem and solution. And remember, we're going to do this together. But before I start the story, I want to remind you all that a problem is something that a person wants to do, change, or find out. So we're looking for something that a person wants to do, change, or find out. And then a solution is the way a person solves the problem or a way a person fixes the problem. So remember that. Problem is something that a person wants to do, change, or find out. And the solution is the way the person solves the problem. All right, let's start our story. So the title of our story is A Jump in the Pool. And our author is Michelle Perrault. And our illustrator is Nathan Jarvis. Robbie was nervous. He had swimming class, and today was the day he had to jump off the diving board. Maybe the weather will be very bad, Robbie thought. Then there will be no swimming class. He looked up. It was very sunny. Robbie was not afraid of the water. He knew how to swim, but jumping into the pool was different. He would not be able to touch the bottom. Jump in and then start swimming, Robbie's teacher said. Robbie was nervous. Maybe water would get in his nose. Maybe he could not come up for air. Okay, said the teacher. I want everyone to come over to the diving board. Peter jumped first. Laura jumped next. She made a big splash. Then Olivia jumped. She jumped very high and even turned in the air. "You're next, Dave," the teacher said. "I'm afraid," Dave whispered to Robbie. "Don't be afraid," said Robbie. "Just jump and start swimming." Then, without thinking, Robbie said, "Look, I'll show you what to do." Robbie walked onto the diving board. He was nervous. "Jump and swim," he said to himself. He closed his eyes and held his breath. Then he jumped. Splash! Robbie went into the water. He moved his legs and arms. Then his head was out of the water and he swam to the edge of the pool. "Don't worry," Robbie said to Dave with a smile. "Just jump in and swim."
All right, so when we think back on our story that we just read, was there something that Robbie needed to do, change, or find out in that story? You know what, I think there was. Didn't Robbie need to jump off the diving board? That's right. So that was our problem, that Robbie needed to jump off the diving board. Now, what were the steps that he took to solve that problem? I think his first step was that he watched his friends jump off the diving board. So he saw, oh, they can jump off the diving board. Maybe I can do it. And then his next step, right before he jumped off the diving board, do you think that it was important that he held his breath and closed his eyes? I think that was another step towards our solution. And then what was our final solution? Yes, he overcame his fear and he overcame his nervousness and he jumped off the diving board. So let's just repeat those so we know for sure what our problem was, our steps to our solution, and our solution was. So our problem is that Robbie had to jump in the pool, or had to jump off the diving board into the pool. And our steps towards our solution were, our first step was he watched his friends jump off the diving board, so he saw that they could do it. So he's starting to get maybe a little bit closer to wanting to jump off that diving board. And what was that second step that he took? That's right, he knew that he needed to hold his breath and close his eyes to jump off the diving board. And then the last step was his solution was he overcame his fears, or he put his nervousness aside and he jumped off the diving board. So that was our problem, our steps to our solution, and our solution. All right, I'm going to read us one more story and then it's going to be your job to identify our problem and our solution. I know you can all do it.
All right, firsties, now it is your turn to identify the problem and solution in a news story. And the title of our news story is A Good Idea. The author of this story is Christy T. Butler, and the illustrator is Luisa Vera de Augusta. Morgan and James were playing baseball. Morgan threw the ball too far. It went into the street. A big red truck came down the street. It ran over the ball. "We need a place to play," said Morgan. "That would be a great place to play," said James, pointing to the lot next door. "Maybe," Morgan said, "but it's such a mess." Do you see the lot that James is pointing to over here? So he thinks that that would be a nice place to play, but Morgan says that there's a little bit too much trash over there for them to play. Morgan and James had an idea. "We could clean up the lot next door," they both said. Morgan and James ran home and told their parents about their idea. "My dad says cleaning up the lot will be hard work," said James. "My mom says we will need a lot of help," said Morgan. "Let's ask some of our friends and neighbors for help," said James. "That's a good idea," said Morgan. "The whole neighborhood can help." "That would be great." Morgan and James told their parents all about their idea. They thought it was a great idea. Their neighbors thought it was a great idea too. On Saturday,
Many neighbors came to the lot. Kayla and her mom brought trash bags. Justin and his parents brought flowers to plant. Mrs. Taylor brought paints. She wanted to paint a mural on the wall. At the end of the day, James and Morgan looked at the mural. "It's wonderful," James said to Mrs. Taylor. "You are good at painting." "Yes," said Morgan. "That's a beautiful mural." This is the mural on the wall. So mural is a word we use to describe a painting that is on a big structure outside. So this is the mural that Mrs. Taylor painted. "You are both good at something too," Mrs. Taylor said. "We are?" James and Morgan asked. "Yes, you are. You are good at thinking of great ideas," Mrs. Taylor said. Everyone cheered. They wondered what great idea James and Morgan would think of next. All right, firsties, now that we finished that story, it is your turn to identify the problem and solution in a story. And you know what? I'm pretty sure you all are gonna knock this out of the park. So go ahead and click on our Google form and see if you can identify the problem and solution. And you know what? Don't worry if you have a hard time with this, because we're gonna get some extra practice during our live video this week. So good luck with this assignment. I know you all are gonna do great, and I will see you all tomorrow during our live video at 10 a.m. in the morning. Bye.